Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I got a special guest here with me today. Today I have Kyle Sevenoaks, and we're going to be talking about his short film Taste in Music. Hey Kyle, how's it going?
Hi, I'm going great, thanks. How you doing?
I'm doing so well. It's early in the morning, but I'm up. I'm up for this. So I wanted to talk about your debut short horror film, and congratulations on that because this is a debut, right? So I've also heard that you're a musician. Is that true?
That is true, yeah. I've been a
Yeah.
musician for a long time.
Yeah. I know you're probably like, obvious. Look at all these guitars in the background.
Yeah, there's a few. This is only a small fraction of the ones I have.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask you, what state of mind do you have to be in when you're creating a film versus when you're doing music?
Oh man, that's a good question. With me, with music, it's very sort of one man show, and I sort of distribute the things to the other band members, and they come up with their own thing, and we come back later and put it all together. But with a film, it's very much I have the vision in my head, and everybody needs to get on board with that vision, and like bring their own thing to it, obviously, of course. But it's a bit different. It's very different because I've sat there and written the script and come up with the characters and figured out the story. It's not so much like, oh, here's a cool riff we can shove together with another cool riff and somebody can sing over the top of it. It's very, very different. Yeah.
And then is there one that you enjoy more, or is it just because they're just so different?
Oh, I mean, with film, I think I enjoy it more because it brings together so many different like creative fields. Like it's music as well as visual stuff as well as audio work. So I enjoy film way more than music. Being a musician.
Okay.
Mm.
You know what?
Mm.
You're the first one that's actually answered. Usually, when I ask people which of their, creative endeavors or which of their art that they like best, people are always like, oh, I like both, or, they don't ever really
Oh,
say
really?
one. So you're the first one that's actually answered that. So that's
Wow.
cool.
Don't be wrong, I love music, but just love film more.
Right, right.
Mm.
And then, looking back on the film now, is there anything that you would have done differently or something that you learned from this experience that you know you'll take with you into the next one?
Oh, there's honestly too many things to mention. There's so much more. There's so many things I'd have done differently and set up shots a bit differently. I'd have set off 2 extra days just for insert shots because we sort of had to do them really, really quickly. And I'm like, that could have been done better. I'm not going to say which ones 'cause I don't want people to like pixel peep. But
Right. They'll go
yeah,
back and look.
yeah. I learned so much about time management and delegating to other team members and stuff like this. So yeah, there's honestly too much to mention. Because it's the debut, it's like I'm pretty sure we can get this done in 4 days, and I was like down to the wire. It was 4 o'clock in the morning on the last evening we had, and it was like, yeah, we managed to do it, but oh my god, we're all really tired
Oh, man, I can only imagine, but then that would be
now.
like an experience you'll always remember too.
Oh yeah, never gonna forget it. Always remember you first, right?
Yeah. And then what was funny was watching this film, I thought about 2 different, like, I guess 2 different big people in horror. One, I thought about R.L. Stein because of
Mm.
Goosebumps, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. I mean, Goosebumps is, like, super popular. There's a whole series, books, movies, and I was thinking about more so the show because I grew up watching that in the '90s, and a lot of the episodes, a lot of it was, like, something turning into something else, like something turning into a creature or even, like, an object, and so it kinda reminded me of that a little bit, and then I also thought about Stephen King's, Christine, how the
Mm.
car, becomes evil and is like going after people. So kind of this theme of like objects turning into something or coming alive. And so I was curious what your major influences it are, and then like does that bleed into your work when you're making films?
I think on a subconscious level, it has to bleed in because you've grown up with such, like, like you say, R.L. Stein. I remember reading R.L. Stein Choose Your Own Adventure books when I was a kid, and then going on to the show when it came out. Remember the dog with the yellow eyes? That is one of the biggest images from
Yeah.
R.L. Stein. Yeah, Goosebumps. That's great. And Christine, yeah, Stephen King. He wrote this book with. He had a co-authored a book. I can't remember the name of the other author. I'm very sorry. And there's a two-part series about Jack, a kid called Jack who goes to some other dimension, and that is like stuck with me from Stephen King. And I really love that book and his short stories as well. He has a whole book of short stories about a giant rat that is disgusting. I don't know. Didn't really influence his story too much, but Christine, I think, definitely did because it was like you say, keyboard that turns into something else and tries to eat the protagonist.
Yeah.
So I think kind of subconscious. I was thinking more about like Evil Dead and Sam Raimi, that kind of thing. During at the time, because of both set in a cabin, remote cabin, or away from everything else, and so that was one of the influences too. But you're on the nail with R.L. Stine and Stephen King, absolutely.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'm glad I said that because I was like, I
Mm.
hope that's not too far off, but that's just what
No.
came to mind when I was watching it. And what's funny, I don't know if you've seen the new Evil Dead Rise.
Oh, it's on my watch list. I haven't got to it yet, but it's definitely on
Okay.
there.
Yeah, I met Alyssa Sutherland. She plays like
Oh,
the main
wow.
character, and she's like super tall, and it was like a little scary because I've seen her in
Mm,
the movie, and I was like, man, like she did a really good job. You'll like it.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it.
And then I'm curious what your thought process is when creating the story. I know we just talked about influences, but obviously, like the idea of a keyboard coming to life sounds kind of ridiculous. Like most people would be like, "What? That's not scary. That's like silly," you know? And so I think for me, I kind of thought what was really scary about it, not so much the way it looked, but in my mind, it was sort of sinister that it was a keyboard coming to life because clearly the main character has a love for music and we see it in the first scene. And then I thought about you being a musician and I was like, that's actually really messed up because it's like the thing you love turning on you or this thing that you
Mm.
have, such a adoration for is like now evil. And so I was wondering if like that was kind of your thought process or were you just kind of like, hey, I just want to make a keyboard into a monster.
Well, no, there was a little bit of that, like taking something that you love and turning on you. There's a little bit of that in there, obviously. But the other thing I had in the back of my mind was when, as a musician, when you're playing your instruments, generally you pound on them. You are very mean to your instruments, and they get wear marks, and they get splintered and scratched and broken. So I thought maybe it's kind of a revenge thing as well. That he was, it didn't come through as much as I wanted to in the intro where he was playing the thing. I told the actor to really be mean to this thing and hit it as hard as you can, and it didn't come through as much as I wanted to. But if it had done, I think there would have been more of sort of a revenge thing. He's been hitting this keyboard really, really hard, and so the keyboard wants to eat him back, hit him back.
See, I would have
Mm,
never thought of that. I love that.
mm.
That's a really cool
Yeah,
interpretation.
thanks.
Have you gotten the chance to observe, other people watching the film? And I was kind of curious about, maybe if there was a difference between, like, American audiences and, like, British audiences, because I feel like maybe our level of scary is different than theirs because I think Americans are really desensitized. So we see certain things that it's maybe not as frightening, whereas, like, maybe somebody from a different country would be like, "No, that's actually really scary." So I was wondering if you were able to observe that or if you've been able to play it for different audiences.
I have, yeah, and there's definitely a difference.
Mhm.
American audiences definitely are desensitized, but they'll still scream. There's one pretty disgusting moment in the film where the guy does the thing with the hammer, and like British and European audiences are like almost backing away from the screen as they watch that and going,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's gross," And American audiences are like, "Yeah, that's awesome." So there's a
Yeah.
bit of a difference there, which I quite like. I think it's great to see the different people react in different ways. I really like it. I remember watching the remake Omen in 2006 in American cinemas when it came out, and I'd never been to an American cinema before that, only the UK and in Europe. So that was an experience to say the least. Everyone was like hollering and whooping as the film went on, and I was like, "This is amazing! I have to come back and see more films."
Yeah. It kinda reminds me of, I think it's, Scream 2 when they're
Mm,
in the opening scene, everybody's in the theater and they're, like, throwing I mean, obviously, like, most theaters are not gonna be doing all of that, but the way they show it is almost as, like, audiences are just, like, going wild, and it's like somebody's
yeah.
getting killed on screen, and they're just, like, hooting and hollering, it's like, "What? What is going on?"
Yeah, and you come back to Norway, and everyone's just sort of sat with their arms crossed, going, this is a film."
Yeah, see, and that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering about because 'cause I've never been, so I imagine that there would be a difference there.
There's huge difference, massive, yeah.
And then I was wondering, what are your hopes or your goals for this film? Like, how do you want people to perceive it? And then in turn, how do you want people to perceive you as a director?
Oh, that's an interesting question because obviously we had this idea and we did it just mostly to say we had done it and we can do it. And for this, I want to prove to anybody who's looking for a director that, look, we've got this thing. We made it on our own. It's not bad to say it ourselves, if you know what I mean. And hopefully, like, launch a career as a director. I've always wanted to be one. So this is sort of hopefully my first step in that way, as long as bringing Chris the actor up as well, because I think he's a great actor. He can do a lot of different things. I think he has a great range. Not that he shows it in this film, but hopefully in the next one it will show more of his range.
Yeah, and then what's that like, working with someone you actually know, like somebody that's your friend? Does it make it easier? Is it a little bit harder to be serious about things?
Um, it's a very fine line because we've been friends for a long time. We've been in a band together, so we know how to work together. But it can get a bit like we'll have an idea each, and we'll have to convince each other or shoot the idea down somehow. And it's like, how do you do this without breaking the friendship? But we managed to get through it. So sometimes, one time we got a bit touchy when it was like we had an idea, but we were on set and it was too late to change it. And we were like, ah, that sucks, and then we were a bit annoyed, but not really with each other at the situation. But still, we know how to treat each other as friends, so that's good. But I can imagine if we weren't friends, it would have been easier for me to just say, "No, we're doing it this way. Let it go."
Okay,
Mm,
that's interesting.
yeah.
And then I've heard that you have a production company. Is it Sevenoaks Film?
Yeah, it's, that's what we're gonna be releasing most things under.
Okay, that's cool. And then so I assume that, yeah, like you said, there's gonna be more film projects to come. Is there anything that you're working on now that you can kind of tease or share a little bit?
Yeah, there's a music video for a song I wrote a long time ago that I decided to do a video for, which is like a one shot end-to-end video, so there's no cuts or anything like that. We just wanted to go with an experiment. And another short film, short horror film, which is a bit more serious in nature. No, not so much comedy in this one. We've got the script written and it's been analyzed by an industry professional, and they said it's very, very good. So get on with it. So we're shopping it around for funding now and hoping to start shooting in August or September.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
so
Yeah.
with film, do you see yourself kind of staying in the horror genre, or do you think you'd kind of like to branch out and maybe something else?
Well, I'm a massive fan of both horror and science fiction, so hopefully I can do a bit of both. I mean, horror, I think, is where my strengths are, and science fiction is just a massive love for me. So I think I've got this idea for a sci-fi epic cyberpunk sort of revenge story that I've been putting notes down on paper. So hopefully I can get that made in the future.
That'd be cool. And then do you have, if you can choose one horror movie that you say is your absolutely all-time favorite, what would it be?
Oh my God. Does Terminator count? Because that's the one I saw first, and that's the one I love.
That counts.
All right,
I mean,
first
I
Terminator
think
then.
that would be more, maybe it would be a little bit more sci-fi, but yeah, I
Yeah,
think that would,
I think it's
I'd take
got
it.
both though. Yeah.
Did you see it in theaters or what was your experience like with that?
Oh, well, that one, my parents were watching it in my living room when I was 5, 6 years old, and I accidentally watched it. They didn't know I was in the room. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it stuck
Yeah.
with me for the rest of
It's
time.
usually those types of movies that you see when you're really, really young and it
Yeah,
sticks with you, like you said. For
yeah,
me, and
absolutely
it's
did.
funny for me, I didn't really enjoy horror movies as a kid. I was too scary. And so it wasn't really until I got older where I kind of went back and watched like a lot of like, 80s and 90s films and kind of was able to appreciate it more as an adult. Whereas like as a kid, I was like, oh, I can't do it. I'm
Yeah,
too scared.
I was terrified of the Terminator robot for such a long time, and then I watched it, I was like, "That's not so bad. Actually, this is amazing."
Yeah.
Mm.
That's funny. And then lastly, where can people follow you on social media?
It's just my name. Most things, Instagram and Twitter, I'm on mostly at the moment. Just Kyle Sevenoaks with. I think Twitter actually is an underscore in between the names, but if you search for it, you'll find me. So,
Okay, cool. Thank you so
yeah.
much, Kyle. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for the interview. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing more of your films and hopefully I can get you back on the podcast.
I'll be happy to come back.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks.